Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Translation Studies and Training, SOTST, Master's Degree Programs, Master of Arts, Translation Studies, Maths, English, First Year, MTT 016 Translation and Mass Communication, Block-1 Role of Translation in Modern Mass Communication, Unit-3 Print Media and Translation, 3.0 Objectives. After reading this unit, we will be able to do the following times that the journey started with block. Printing of print media, we will discuss the journey and after that the entry into the field of desktop printing and digital media manufacturing, production, and the invention of printing process and consideration in detail will discuss. Times we will evaluate the role played by the media during its long journey and learn how media has worked to bring changes in the lives of people, governments, and other organizations around the world. Times review the role of translation in print media. We will also analyze how translation skills are used in print media. What is the role of translation in the daily work of print media organizations? How do non-media organizations use translation in their daily official, professional and administrative work? 3.1 Introduction. In the current digital age when we are constantly bombarded with words, pictures and videos all around us, it is astonishing to know that man lived his life for thousands of years without the skill of writing. Whatever he expressed, he learned by signs or verbally and by watching others act and talking. The knowledge of writing was a great achievement in the history of human civilization. It has provided a better medium to channelize the knowledge of accumulated experience to others. Through writing, one generation was able to transfer its accumulated knowledge to another. After the invention of writing, its access to a limited number of people was the biggest challenge. Before it, there were only a few people who knew how to read and write. And much time had to be spent in copying a written expression. It was not possible for everyone to make the copy him herself or get someone to do the work of copying by paying remuneration. Only merchants, rulers and wealthy individuals had enough resources to hire scribes to copy books and patronize original writing. Copying by hand was too time-consuming. So a person could copy only a few books in his entire lifetime. Therefore, the number of books and their copies were limited and access to them was limited only to those who had sufficient resources. People had to travel hundreds of miles to read new books of their interest. Being educated and reading books was the monopoly of the elite. The common people had to believe what they were told, as they were not able to read and write due to lack of resources. The children of rulers and elite people used to stay at the teacher's house and take education. Whatever was taught to them by the teacher was the ultimate truth for them. He had no other option but to believe what the teacher said. This process continued until block printing in books and later with the help of the printing machine became accessible to a much larger population. 3.2 Print media. Before knowing about the nature and role of print media, it would be necessary to know and understand the words print and media separately. Print as a verb means the process of printing words and images usually on paper or cloth with the help of ink and with the help of machine or printing block, which is used for printing, was done before the invention of the machine. Word media is the plural of medium, which is derived from the Latin word medius, which means middle. Therefore, all those devices, instruments and techniques are collectively called media, which are used to store and disseminate information. Based on the above discussion, we can say that print media is a unified name for all those technologies which are used to store and disseminate information in printed form. For example, newspapers, periodicals, books, pamphlets, brochures, leaflets and handouts etc. Printing is believed to have been developed in China. Initially after the invention from wood block, printing spread all over the world and helped people to learn and become educated. There is no doubt that we all as humans are indebted to those who invented printing, because without it the important changes that have taken place in societies around the world may not have been possible without the dissemination of information. Studying the history of the world, we find that people got information about their rights and got inspiration to fight for them by reading books written by those people or by the guidance of people who worked for the welfare of the society. Books were used for 3.2.1 A brief history of print media. The history of print media begins around 3000 BC when the creation of uniform images or pictures on clay slates began in the Mesopotamian civilization. At that time, similar images were produced on cloth, using wooden blocks. Later, paper was invented in China, a product made from the papyrus or reed plant. Evidence of mass copying in India dates back to the time of the Indus Valley civilization 5000 years ago. Records of land grants are mainly found on copper plates and various surfaces like wood, bone, ivory, etc. used to be engraved. Block printing. The technique of block printing is used for words, pictures or designs. It was widely used throughout East Asia. It originated in ancient China, first for clothing and later for printing on paper. As a method of printing on cloth, the earliest preserved remains date to 220 BC from China and the 4th century from Roman Egypt. The earliest surviving woodblock print from China dates to the Ha dynasty, before 220 BCE, and is a tricolor print of flowers on a silk cloth. And the earliest extant remains of paper from woodblocks date from the mid-7th century in China. Woodblock printing on textiles appears to have begun in Roman Egypt in the 4th century. Block printing was called tarash in Arabic in the 9th to 10th centuries and was mainly used for the printing of prayers and amulets. Few remains are available to suggest that the print block was manufactured from non-wooden materials. Printing on paper was probably introduced by the early 9th century, as evidenced by the Diamond Sutra, a fully printed book in 868 AD, and 400,000 prints of certain sutras and photographs from Confucian literature in the 10th century. Copies are obtained. It is believed that a skilled printer could print 2000 double sheets, pannas, per day. Printing techniques soon spread to Japan and Korea, and they also used the Chinese logogram, but this technique was also used in Turpan and Vietnam with many different scripts. Although paper, unlike the spread of Islam, the technology of printing did not spread much in the Islamic world. Dynamic typing, 1040 AD. The first dynamic typesetting system was invented in China by Bai Sheng using porcelain. Sheng used clay, which broke easily. But Wang Zhen invented a more durable typesetting system in 1298 AD using wood. Combining written Chinese characters with a rotating number system was used. With the invention of this technology, the work of typesetting and printing became easier and more effective. In recent times, mainly wooden blocks have been used for printing. In later times, dynamic printing was invented by Bai Sheng of China, and around 1440, Johannes Gutenberg, a resident of the city of Mainz, Germany, developed an effective printing technique called the printing press. Gutenberg's main work is the Gutenberg Bible, which is also known as the 42-line Bible. It was published in 1455 AD and became highly acclaimed for its aesthetic and technical quality. Gutenberg used dynamic typesetting for printing. in which he molded each letter separately and then arranged these molded letters or type together in lines as words to prepare the page. After his invention, he opened his shop in Manch. The first book in Europe was printed here. It was a Bible and came to be known as the Mangerian Bible. After this, printing spread rapidly all over Europe. By 1476, it was brought to England by William Caxton. In 1539 AD, a press was established in Mexico, and 100 years later the first book was published in what came to be known as the United States of America. The linotype machine was patented by Ottmar Mergenthaler in 1884 AD. This created slugs, with each slug acting like a hand-arranged row. This machine had a keyboard like a printer. With each stroke of the key, a matrix or mold slid from its place in a row. When the matrix or molds of a complete row were in one place, the machine type would produce the row in metal type. After insertion, the matrix returns to its place. Mir Nazbat Ali discusses this in his book The Invention That Changed the World. The rotary printing press was invented by Richard March Hoe in 1843 AD. It uses impressions rotating around a cylinder to print on long rolls of paper or other surfaces. Later, William Bulbuck made significant improvements to rotary printing. Offset printing. Offset printing is a commonly used printing technique in which the inked image or offset is transferred from a plate to a rubber blanket, and then to the printing surface. When used in conjunction with the lithographic process, which is based on water and oil repulsion, offset technology uses a flat image carrier, planographic technology, on which the image to be printed receives ink from an ink roller, while the non-printing area attracts a water-containing film called the fountain solution, thus keeping the non-printing area free of ink. Offset press was developed in two versions, the first by Robert Barclay of England in 1875 for printing on tin, and the second in 1903 by Washington Rubel of the United States for printing on paper. Gravure printing. Gravure printing is an intaglio printing technique where the image to be printed is made up of small cavities, pits, on the surface of the printing plate. The cells are filled with ink and the excess ink is removed with a doctor's blade, and then the rubber-covered roller paper is pressed against the surface of the plate and in contact with the ink-filled cells. Printing plates are usually made of copper and are produced by digital engraving or laser engraving. Gravure print is used for long, high-quality printing jobs, such as magazines, mail order, catalogs, packaging, and printing on fabric and wallpaper. It is also used for printing postage stamps and plastics. With decorative laminations such as kitchen worktops, printing in India, as mentioned above, evidence of the concept of mass copying in India dates back to the time of the Indus Valley civilization, about 5,000 years ago, in the most ancient times. Land grants were recorded mainly by engraving the information on copper plates and various surfaces like wood, bone, ivory, etc. The Emperor of Abyssinia, Ethiopia, requested the King of Portugal to send Mr. Narij with a press. Thus, the first group of Jesuits missionaries left for Ethiopia on 29 March 1556. Passing through the route, this group reached Goa on 6 September 1556. But as they were preparing to leave for Ethiopia, they received information that the Emperor of Ethiopia was unwilling to welcome the missionaries. Thus, fate played its course and the press remained in Goa and was established in St. Paul's College, Goa. Today, the massive arch of the St. Paul's College Gate, restored by the Archaeological Survey of India, is living testimony to this pioneering effort. The first printed literature in India was published on 6 November 1556 AD. The rest of the story is an indelible piece of history. Many printing presses were established by the missionaries in different parts of India, and thus a language and literary revolution was initiated. Babu K. Varghese discussed this in his 2007 book From Palm Leaves to Printed Word. Published by The Hindu on 1 April 2007, the history of printing begins with evangelistic efforts, the rehearsals of Catholics and Protestants. 69 years after Vasco da Gama's arrival in India, the first print press center opened in Goa, a decade after the beginning of the 16th century. Within 100 years of the publication of Gutenberg's Bible, in Germany, India had begun to trace the typesetting process of several Indian languages. It is described in the book History of Printing and Publication in India written by B.S. Keshwan in the year 1985 and published by the National Book Trust. If the locations of the earlier printing presses are plotted on a map of India, it would be clear that all of them were located along the coast of peninsular India. Goa, Cochin, Punnakyal, near Kanyakumari, Vyapikottai, near Kodungallur, and Amblakkadu, near Thrissur, are all located along the west coast. Thirangambadi, Trankebar, Madras, Fort William, Calcutta and Serampore were located along the east coast, and together they shaped Indian printing. Bombay contributed its share to the second phase of the vigorous growth of early Indian printing. Roman priests from Catholic missions and Protestant missions from Europe took this impulse further in their concern to translate the Bible and thus spread the word of God. 3.2 to nature and role of print media. Since the beginning of printing, prominence was given to publishing religious books. Buddha's teachings were first printed in China with the help of wooden blocks on cloth and then printed on paper, which was produced for the first time in China. Even when Gutenberg of Germany invented the printing press, around 1440 AD, religious books were the first to be published, of which the Bible was prominent. Later non-religious books were also published. These included books of dictionaries and grammars. Literature also found its place in the world of printing. After literature, it was now the turn of news and current events. Important events were published in newspapers and magazines, and thus people started getting information about the happenings around them. Not only the events but their background and analysis also became an integral part of the newspapers and magazines' role of print media. Not only did printing make possible the rapid copying of words, but its far-reaching effects were yet to be assessed. When books became available in abundance and at a lower cost than before, the general public became easy to access these books. Now reading is no longer the monopoly of the kings, the rich and the elite. The general public, which till now believed in what some educated people said, now started reading for themselves and thus gained direct knowledge. Thereafter, people began to challenge unacceptable customs and traditions that served the interests of the ruling class. With the invention of printing, the world began to change rapidly, which led to the emergence of new ideas, which began to challenge the validity of previously held beliefs. A suitable medium was required for the dissemination of these ideas. Printing provided this medium, and thus revolutionary ideas started spreading rapidly all over the world. If we analyze the history of the world carefully, we will find that the means of communication have played a positive role in the background of revolutions around the world. All the revolutions that have taken place in the world have been supported by means of powerful communication, and print media has played a decisive role in bringing changes in the governance system. In the stream of history, Samuel Hartlib, who was expelled from Britain, was an advocate of social and cultural reform. He wrote, in 1641 AD that the art of printing would spread in such a way that the common people would know about their rights and liberties, and they would not be ruled by repressive methods. Print media made it easier for the general public to access books and knowledge that were not available to them before, resulting in an increase in people's knowledge and personal thought. The ability to formulate one's own ideas began to become a reality with the popularity of the printing press. At the same time, print provided the standardization and preservation of knowledge, which ushered in a more fluid flow in the era of oral manuscript circulation. Briggs and Burke 2002, A Social History of the Media, 3.3 Print Media and Electronic Media. Print media has been with us for more than 450 years. During the last 100 years, we have also witnessed the advent of electronic media. It began with radio in the United States in the second decade of the 20th century. The British Broadcasting Corporation was established in 1920 AD. The first radio broadcast in India was done on 20th August 1921 from the Times of India building in Mumbai. Television first arrived in India on 15th September 1959 AD. In 1976, Doordarshan was separated from All India Radio. Color TV emerged in the 80s. In the year 1990, private channels were allowed to telecast the program. At present, there are about 400 channels working in India which broadcast their programs all over the country. When TV was invented, some people felt that it would put an end to the print media. But with the passage of time, we saw that both TV and print media have different ways of moving forward. Both electronic and print media have contributed to each other's growth. Both have influenced each other and both have been influenced by each other. Electronic media provides information very quickly, while print media provides in-depth analysis of events, which is not possible through electronic media. Considering these facts, we can say that both electronic and print media have their own different target groups. No doubt these can overlap, but it is not possible for electronic media to eliminate print media as its life depends on printed words. 3.3.1 Similarities between print and electronic media. Despite the technical differences between print media and electronic media, they also have some similarities. The goal of both media is to disseminate information to a large group of people. Both media make use of the written word. Both the media require investment to run the media organizations. Both media require trained personnel to function in a professional environment. Both the media depend on advertisement for earning income. 3.3.2 Difference between print and electronic media. Although some of the similarities between electronic and print media have been described above, yet there are some clear differences that can be easily identified. The target group of print media is only educated class, while electronic media is not bounded by any such limitation. Electronic media can be used by both educated and illiterate groups as it provides information to the audience in their primary language. The influence of electronic media is much greater than that of print media. This is because of its audiovisual presentation, which continuously entices the viewer to watch on the screen. Print media can be read by the user at any time according to his/her time availability, flexibility, while in electronic media the audience has to be alert at the time of transmission of the message. Otherwise, the message of the program may be missed by him, If the information is not clear, then the user of print media can read it again and also take help from someone, whereas electronic media does not provide any such facility. 3.4 Print media. Role of translation. We know that translation is the communication of words in the source language into an equivalent in meaning to the target language. Interpretation undoubtedly began before writing, while translation emerged after the advent of written literature. There is evidence of a partial translation of the Sumerian text Gilamasha about 2000 BC into a Southwest Asian language in the 2nd century BC. As far as the relationship between print media and translation is concerned, we must say that both have contributed a lot to each other's development. On the one hand, where translation has served to reach the printed word to a large readership around the world, on the other hand, print media has helped in making translation an independent discipline, as the demand for professional documentation increased as a result of the Industrial Revolution. Beginning in the mid-18th century, some translation specialists formally joined dedicated schools and professional organizations. Translation served as a bridge for the dissemination of information between cultures. It has helped people of different cultures to know and understand each other and interact with each other without any misunderstandings and disputes. As a global citizen, we get influenced by the happenings around the world. An event happening in any part of a country has a universal impact. So it becomes necessary to share our happiness and joy with people living in different geographical areas. Print media is doing a great job in this context. At present, there is a flood of printed words all around us. We see printed words wherever we go. Newspapers, magazines, pamphlets, brochures, leaflets, visiting cards, and user manuals are formats where printed words are used. People living in different parts of the world do not speak the same language. So without translation, we cannot convey the same information to different types of people in different parts of the world. Even though the printed word is available in abundance, you must have seen many times that the same content is published in 2 or more languages. Due to the importance of such subject matter, it is done with the help of translation. At present, it is not possible for any media organization in the world to function without translators. Information is all around us in different languages. There is some information in all these languages which is essential for the people who speak all the languages. Translation is necessary to convey such information to users of another language. It would not be wrong to say that there is a great need for translation for the functioning and expansion of print and electronic media. 3.4.1 Translation and newspapers, day-to-day reporting. The ability to translate in day-to-day reporting is especially taken advantage of by print media organizations. For example, if a member of parliament gives an important speech in the parliament, then that speech is translated in all the languages in which the newspapers are published, and after that the translated speech is published in all the newspapers. Another very important translated work is the speech of the Prime Minister and the President, which is translated and published in all the newspapers. Not only the address of the Prime Minister and the President, but if the speech given by a prominent leader in any regional language is of national or global importance, then it is also translated and published in different languages, in addition to speeches or statements. Important news of one area is translated and published in another language newspaper. For example, on 10th July 2011, there was a train accident in Fatehpur district of Uttar Pradesh, which was published by newspapers in different languages. As soon as new news comes out in the afternoon, it is translated into different languages and posted on the website of the newspapers. Next day, wide coverage of that incident is published in newspapers of all languages. International news reporting. In the era of globalization, we are not citizens of just one country, but we are all global citizens who are affected by events happening thousands of miles away. Whenever important international news comes to the fore, it is translated and published in newspapers of all languages. In this way, speakers of all languages get information about the events happening around the world. It does not matter what is their native language and in which part of the world the event is happening. For example, the ruler of Libya, Colonel Gaddafi, releases a video of an uprising in his country, which is translated and published in all newspapers. 3.4.2 Translations and journals. In the current era of globalization, publishing magazines without translation is almost impossible. Innumerable information, news and views are in other languages, which need to be published. In such circumstances, translation work is done to provide variety to the readers. Sometimes a specific news item is covered by a particular newspaper or magazine. If the coverage of news is important, then that news is translated into other languages and published in other magazines. Along with this, a comprehensive analysis of that news, its background, and assessment of its possible impact on society, economy, nation, and the world is published in translation. For example, the famous magazine Tehelka published the names of people who have Swiss bank accounts in their names. This news was published by the magazines of different languages in translation and giving credit to Tehelka. 3.4.3 Translation and technical writing. In today's global economy, goods are produced for the citizens of the whole world and are exported to different countries, and then those products are transported to different states of those countries. Companies publish user manuals to use the products. If companies publish the user manual in only one language, then people speaking other different languages will find it difficult to use that particular product and will not show much interest in buying such products. For this you have to take help from others. Therefore, most product information brochures and user manuals, which provide consumers with information on how to use the product, are translated into the local language where the product is sold. Have to go. If a company wants to sell its mobile phone in Bihar, Maharashtra and Kerala, then it has to publish brochure in Hindi, Marathi and Malayalam language respectively. 3.4.4 Translation and other print material. Reporting in non-media organizations. Most non-media organizations take advantage of translation skills. If their daily work is not done in English, then they translate important documents, reports, circulars and memos into English and keep the same in their records. Their annual reports are also translated into English so that they can be sent to the various departments concerned for keeping their records for other official purposes and for seeking grants from them. Companies doing business in different parts of the country and the world translate their pamphlets, brochures, leaflets and handouts into the local language while keeping the pictures, quotes and graphics the same. 3.4.5 Translation and literature. Translation has helped the readers to read quality literature from all the languages of the world in their own native language. Famous works of eminent authors are translated into different languages of the world and thus readers get benefited from books in different languages. In addition to readers, translation is also beneficial for authors and publishers of literary books because through translation they are able to reach a larger readership and thereby increase their income from the sale of books as well as prestige. 3.4.6 Translations and academic books. Books on many subjects are not originally written in all languages. If necessary or popular book of any subject is not available in a particular language, it can be obtained through translation in that language. For example, medical and engineering books in India are not available in all regional languages, which are the medium of instruction in many areas. Such books are translated into the regional language so that the student can pursue higher education in her mother tongue. 3.5 Let us sum up. In this unit, we have discussed how writing and printing were invented and developed all over the world. Before the technology of printing, copying a book was a very difficult task. Only merchants, rulers and other wealthy people had enough resources to hire scribes to make copies of books and patronize original writing. But printing made books accessible to all people who did not come from the elite class. It resulted in significant changes in societies around the world and played an important role in historical events. The world we see today would hardly have been possible without printing and the printed word reaching a vast number of people. With the passage of time, some felt print media would be replaced by electronic media and newspapers, and magazines would die a slow death. But with time, all the worries have proved to be baseless. We have seen that after the invention of electronic media, the circulation number and readership of print media has increased all over the world. However, we cannot deny the fact that electronic media has served to convey messages even to that section of the public who are not educated and cannot read newspapers, magazines, and other printed materials. Both print media and electronic media represent different types of media, yet they have some similarities. Apart from the similarities between print and electronic media, we have also understood the dissimilarities between them. We have also discussed the role of translation in print media. We have also studied the role of translation in newspapers, such as translating an important event or speech into all the languages in which the newspaper is published. News coming from other countries is translated and published in newspapers of different languages. The role of translation in the context of journals, technical writing and other print material is also discussed in this chapter. The stories of a publication are translated and published in different languages of the print media. Tender, notices, advertisements, classified advertisements are translated and published in the local language. Organizations and companies whose business is spread across different states and countries also use the services of translators to get the information translated into the local language of the place where the print material is to be sent. Thank you. Subscribe to our channel for more updates, and we will see you with the next chapter.